So, it's a question, what's the weather like? I mean, we've had storms all night since 2 o'clock this morning. And I mean, we've got days lined out, but, y'all get anything up there in Illinois?
It's a little
Mm.
cooler and overcast this morning. Supposed to be getting some showers today. Nothing significant, but we've had a really good run. Had some storms last weekend. Uh, had a really good run this week. A lot of stuff's finally going in the ground around
Got it.
here, so on a good roll.
Catherine, you got tornadoes?
Not yet, but you
It
know,
looks like it's nighttime at your place. Are you like in Europe or what?
right? And better than Jonesboro.
Uh,
But no, it's just storming real bad. I had
Are
to,
you gonna leave that in the recording, better than Jonesboro?
yeah. Anybody who's been to Jonesboro would agree.
Yeah. 2 o'clock this morning, thunder and lightning started ripping up, and Maverick, my oldest lab, decided that, oh shit, I'm scared, and jumped right in the middle of the bed, came all the way to the head of the bed, and snuggled up in between me and Marty, and just said, like, "Yeah, I'm scared." Maverick does not like storms, does not like thunder, does not like lightning, nothing like 95 pounds of lab waking you up at 2 o'clock in the morning because there's one crack of thunder. But anyway,
Good times.
okay, well, hit the thing. So, welcome to StalkTalk. We are joined with the Wilkens from ProHarvest, Jake, Randy, and Josh. Guys, welcome to the podcast. We're thrilled that you're here.
Yeah, thanks for the invite.
And
Well,
Randy, I guess you're really,
Thanks for having us.
you're really not on a boat.
I'm really not on a boat, so
That's too bad because we, could queue up some really obscene music for you and
I
make it
can
yeah,
rock and roll.
we
I
can
can
go ahead and do
superimpose
that.
that.
You
We
can
can put that.
superimpose the music.
Yeah.
I just don't know that makes us family friendly. Would we have, warning for the podcast if we did that? So, hey, what we want to do today is really and truly, through our podcast journey, we've talked to different seed companies about their journey in the seed business and how they got started and what the plans are for the future. And of course, now it's your turn. It's awesome. So we're coming to ProHarvest in Ashcombe, Illinois, and saying, da-da, tell us about what's going on with ProHarvest. And we really want to dive deep into, very seriously, how did y'all get started? And Randy, I'm going to go to you first and say, tell us about the beginning and when you got started and what in the world made you decide to get in this wonderful and infuriating business called selling corn and soybean seed.
Yeah. So I grew up, my dad was started in the late 50s, early 60s doing, the public soybeans and some of those kinds of things as the sideline to his farming operation. That slowly grew. My brother became part of the operation in 1980. My father had built a conditioning tower. That's about when soybeans moved away from public breeding to private. I'm starting to sound like an old guy here with some of these stories, but
That's all
I
right.
came back
I,
and
I feel your I
yeah,
feel your pain. That's the
yeah,
way I've been for like years. So you're joining me.
yeah, yep. Then I came back from college about 1991. Really wanted to farm. First year that I farmed, we actually had a drought. I had 31 bushel corn and 28 bushel soybeans, and it's like, so tell me about this seed thing again. This seems a whole lot more enjoyable. Kind of got focused into that. My brother and I kind of split our responsibilities a little bit. He took over, got more entrenched in the farming operation. I got more involved in the seed. Grew up a really nice contract production business. We were doing a lot of stuff for other companies, soybean seed production. Then around 2000, all the consolidation took place, and our customers all were purchased by someone else, and that production followed them. And we needed to reinvent ourselves a little bit. And a gentleman by the name of Keith Knapp uh, and my brother Lynn, and the three of us created ProHarvest about 15 years ago. And a lot of it, timing is luck. Timing is there's a lot of cool things happened there. We had actually discussed creating a company between the three of us for this was actually the third time that we discussed it. Keith had been a part of Gitwine and Ag Venture and some other companies. He brought a lot of sales background with him. My brother has a strong accounting background, and I knew production, so the three of us created ProHarvest, and the timing was great. I think two at the time was probably we've seen the independent market share has grown fairly consistently since that time. So a lot of it came into it. Now Josh and Jake, my two sons, have joined the company and have actually bought out Keith's share of it as he entered retirement at the end of last year. So it's ProHarvest is now entirely family held and moving on to the next generation. So pretty proud of that. Excited about that. It's been a driving factor all along. One of my goals when our kids were little was that we would build a business that was large enough if they wanted to be a part of it, that opportunity would exist. And I maybe overshot that just a little bit, but it's all good. So we're having a fun ride. It's pretty cool.
Well, the good news is they're no longer a drain on your pocketbook. They're actually contributing members of the company now. They got skin in the game.
Yeah, and I can go sit on a boat when I want while they're out actually working. So
we prefer that sometimes, actually.
Yeah, somehow or another, I'm not surprised to hear that. Okay, so help me out. I'm a big history buff, so we're going to go back in time a little bit. So you said about 15 years ago, so about 2010, is that when y'all stood up?
Yeah, 2010, 2011. Yep.
Okay, so as I remember, 2010, 2011 was an interesting time to start a seed company.
Yes.
It really was. You think about it, we were still actually in the downturn of 2008, 9, starting to nose out of it, but businesses hadn't fully recovered. Commodity prices, I guess we had started to see that big commodity uplift. Of course, I also remember, which took, soybeans to prices we'd never seen before, and, world grain market, and everybody decided, oh my God, this is the best thing ever. We'll never go back to those low prices that we had again. Famous last words.
Yep.
It's always that way. It's never going to go bad again. It's never going to get good again. And then it does.
Yep.
That's a good lesson for today, I guess. Then, big drought came up in 2012. So again, a lot of pressure going through. How did you manage through all that? Really and truly, when we look at that as a time to get started and set up, I can immediately remember a lot of challenges then. I also remember then too, Monsanto was probably at the peak because 2010 is the year they introduced smart stacks. And of course it didn't quite pan out originally the way they wanted to in the first year, but there was a lot of things going on in the market there. How did you overcome all those challenges? Let's start first. What did you see the first challenges that really came across for you?
A lot of it is just starting out from nothing almost. We had a minimal base, but we had a lot of relationships and got a lot of support early on in terms of licensing and building the brand and everything. I think we showed that we were resilient and that we were dedicated to making this happen. I think, you asked me how we got started in this. I think that's one of our big things is resilience. That's kind of been a bit of a family trait. My dad didn't always have things easy, but looking back, I see that it was always, how do you get over it, through it, or around it? He was never one to just sit and complain about things. He would always take action to make things happen and just get through it and persevere. And I think that's been a lot of, really, we've continued that trait on a lot of times. It's, if there's a problem, let's get through it. It's not going to define us. We'll move on. Kind of like you said, there's always ups and downs, no matter what you do, no matter what business it is. So learn from those things. I've talked a lot of times that actually that first bumper crop of 28 bushel beans, 31 bushel corn is probably the best lesson I ever had in my life. You didn't start off with a bumper crop and all this money or whatever the case may be that you thought you had it made. It's like, holy shoot, this sucks.
Yeah, no doubt. And so I'm glad to hear you say that because resilience is a huge deal. And of course, as I look back along a lot of people that have had success, I can immediately identify that, the trait was resilience. They didn't quit. When it got tough, they buckled down. When it got tough again, they buckled down. It was just like, okay, well, yeah, we could quit, but what would we do then?
What would we do? That's exactly right. Growing up in ag, I think a lot of us in the ag space, the same thing. It's the only thing we grew up doing it, right? So you get this feeling it's the only thing I know how to do, and go to college and everything else, and you still think that's the only thing you know how to do. So we end up in this world, right?
Exactly. All right. So Josh and Jake, we're not going to leave y'all out here. Just let y'all listen to your dad talk. So from your standpoint, I mean, really and truly, okay, growing up around the business and doing the business there, and then, college and coming back, what made you decide to this is what I want to do? Why come back to the business? And I asked that for a very clear reason, because I remember 1982 and we were in the dairy business, and my dad looked at me, and I was getting ready to go to college, and he said, "Son, in 4 years when you graduate from college, are you going to come back and run this place?" And I looked him dead in the eye, and I said, "Oh, no, sir. I think I got to do something else." Of course, the dairy business is not quite like the seed business. I mean, seed business got ups and downs. The dairy business, I would tell you, just has the downs, but and it's got a lot of them. But I'm glad we got some resilient farmers out there. I was not one of them. But what made y'all decide to come back? Because clearly you had other opportunities and other options.
I think
All right,
a
who's
lot
going
of it,
first?
I can go. I think a lot of it for me, I guess I like the challenge of it. I like, I didn't start off managing everything. Kind of started off just running small portions of it, or even just doing the grunt work. Over time, kind of gradually grabbed more and more responsibility as we've come along. Didn't really have defined roles or anything like that. Just kind of things just kind of continued to happen. Continually took a little bit more off of Randy's plate as we've gone along, and I've enjoyed the working with the customers. I enjoy working through the challenges that everybody's facing, trying to come up with those solutions. Um, as Dad said, the resiliency. I enjoy looking at problems with different perspectives and trying to find solutions for them. And I know that for a lot of people that can get really frustrating, constantly dealing with problems and challenges. And don't get me wrong, I definitely have my days where I still get frustrated with those challenges. But I think a lot of that makes this really interesting. It's something of our own. It's something that you can kind of look at and say, I was a part of that. I really helped shape that. Um, it just brings a little bit of that pride to it that I wouldn't have if I didn't have a stake in it.
So what you're telling me is your dad did not let you start out in the office and, giving orders. He actually put a broom in your hands and said, "You need to go sweep that warehouse and move that pallet of seed and throw those bags in the truck."
Yep.
Are we kind of getting a picture that you started out with not a defined
The
role? It was
first
like,
the first thing I remember ever doing on the farm was going around and picking up all the piles of soybeans that were in the gravel from cleaning out the combine, and collecting those and putting them into a small bin and taking those to the elevator. I thought we were going to be rich because we had this 50 bushels of beans that we were going to take to the elevator at the end of the fall. And I don't know, I was 8 or 10 years old maybe at the time, something like that. And then it kind of translated into dumping soybeans at the end of the season, all the extra inventory to go to the elevator. We'd dump all those. So it was never, it's kind of just gradually started, little tasks here and there. And as things evolved, the tasks changed.
gotcha. Jake, what you got
Yeah,
to say as you're driving down the road, and we're hoping you're still not having an accident.
Nope, still no accidents. So
Glad you're wearing your seatbelt. We can see
yep,
that.
always. Pretty similar story to Josh. For the most part, starting out, I remember, one of my first jobs that I remember doing was, going around and filling up all the pickup trucks with gas at the end of the day so that they were all ready for the next day. And I was too young to be driving a pickup truck, obviously, so I had to stay in the yard.
But you
But I
got
mean,
to
that's part
drive
of
'em.
how it.
You got to drive the
But I got to drive them, and that was a lot of fun for a 10-year-old. But again, I mean, same thing. Started out with small tasks like that. I remember, through for beginning of high school and stuff, I'd go to school, I'd come home, I'd do my homework, and then I'd go out and wrap pallets for the evening. Do stuff like that, sweep the
I don't remember
floors.
the do homework part.
Well, I did it. Don't worry. Um, did you know, Todd, that if you don't do any homework and you get A's on all your tests, you graduate with C's?
Actually, I did know that for a similar reason. So yeah, had that experience. Been there, done that.
So yeah, but again, kind of similar to Josh and just it's all I've ever really known. I didn't really ever. It was an enjoyable enough experience, and always do something different. That I never really had a desire to go do anything else. One of the great lessons that Dad had us do was we always had to go work for somebody else for a while. So, a couple summers in high school, I went and worked for a neighbor farmer. Through college, I worked down at college instead of at home, and really learned a lot by doing that. And kind of even more just instilled in me that that's what I want to do. I wanted to come home and help grow this thing.
Well, that's awesome. So, Randy, I mean, you made mention about how you felt about the boys coming back in and, being part of that. And I mean, I get it. That was probably always a bit of the plan. But were you surprised? Did you feel like they were going to just always come back into the business, or did you have some concerns a time or two and thinking, oh, crap, they're not going to come, and then I'm going to be left with all this stuff, and I'm not going to have any place to go?
I think part of our growth really is the fact that they're here. I mean, that's been one of the things that we've seen overall, not just with our customers, but with our suppliers, the fact that they can see a succession plan, they can see longevity, reliability with our company. They know what the future is going to hold. So I know early on some of the support that we got from some licensing companies, that was a big deal. At that time, it was after a lot of companies had sold and so forth, and it was kind of what are your intentions here? Well, I've got sons that I think are going to be a part of the business and ultimately take it over. So, that was it's kind of part of my retirement plan too. So I was hoping that they would do this, but and I think some of it too, working with your children a little bit, Libby gets frustrated. Did you talk to Josh about this, or did you talk about Jake about that? It's like, throughout the course of the day, there's so many things going on. We don't really spend much time talking about personal things. It really doesn't happen. And then try to make sure, when we are having family time, that we try not to talk about work. It can be hard sometimes. You're thinking about things, and I'm starting to feel more like my dad was all the time, asking them what they're doing and what everybody else is doing and everything else. And I'm trying really hard to let go of that, but that's a struggle, Todd.
But no, and hey, I'd actually get that. And the reason I ask about that, about the plan and the boys coming in is, clearly, as you just noted, one of the challenges that is in our industry right now, especially with some IPSA companies, is what's the line of succession look like? And I mean, we've got really, resilient long-term companies out there that have been out for, 60, 70, 80, 90 years. I know one of your in-state competitors and good friends just celebrated their 90th anniversary, which is a huge milestone. And of course, but then we've got others that honestly don't have a succession plan and are looking at different alternatives than, going directly into family. But then too, I can personally relate to the concepts of what you're talking about in family and business life, just from the standpoint that, as you know, Marty and I are in business together. I have a very easy way of saying this is business, this is personal, da 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 da. Marty has no filter. It's like we sit down, it's been a long day, and we sit down at dinner, and she wants to talk about 15 things for business. I'm like, doors closed. We are not talking about that. Okay. And then she just sits. Well, what about this? What about the kids and personal? Like, yeah, they're fine. So I get that. It can be
And
challenging.
growing up, my dad was very much running his business, and mom did all the books. And so growing up, I mean, there was a lot of nights that we went out to eat because the kitchen table was full of paperwork, before offices and everything else, and all of the dinner conversations were all about what had happened throughout the day and everything about the farm or everything about seed or whatever the case may be. And subconsciously, I kind of decided in my mind that wasn't the way Libby and I were going to be, and I probably took that a bit too far, Todd. Libby doesn't every once in a while. So how's ProHarvest doing anyway? About once every 6 months, I get that question.
I don't know. I'm gonna have to sit down. We need to get together at dinner. I need you to have that talk with Marty though, and just like, this is the way I grew up and this is what happened. Because honestly, that's kind of the way I grew up too. Dad on the farm and mom and dad it was all about the farm at dinner. And it's like, okay, yeah, but can we talk about something else? I just did great in school today. Yeah, okay, that's fine. Wow, this cow. So that's some good stuff. One thing that I was really interested in, of course, as y'all have grown, I want to say that y'all acquired at least one seed company that I know of.
We did.
But talk to me about how y'all have decided to grow and how y'all have gone through that process. And, as you look at acquisitions, is that still something that, y'all are kind of looking at here and there? Or are you looking more organically? And there's lots of examples of people being very successful both directions. But I mean, talk a little bit about that history and, acquisitions and what you're thinking in the future.
Yeah. So, we had an opportunity. We purchased the Maize brand in 2018, brought some of their sales reps and people on board. And over time, several of those folks have retired. We've kept a good chunk of that business, a lot of those customers over that time. So we've been very, very fortunate there. Worked very hard to do that. It did expand our footprint quite a bit significantly in terms of geography of what we did. So going from Nebraska, Iowa to Ohio. So that did, especially to the west, kind of really broadened our footprint. If other opportunities present themselves, we're always interested in talking. But we tend to look at things. Does this make sense from a company standpoint? Is this a good fit for us culturally? Obviously financially, but would this acquisition make sense for us in the long term? So yes, we need to check those boxes and look at all of those things. Really, mostly we've been focusing on growing organically. When we can add some good people, that's really been the bigger part of it. A lot of it is trying to make sure that we don't get out over our skis sometimes, right? Get ahead of ourselves, that our growth exceeds our production logistics capabilities as well. So slow and steady wins the race has been our mantra, and it's been working pretty well for us.
Gotcha. Jake, what do you think today from your seat is the biggest challenge in front of y'all in 2020? Let me limit it down in 2026. What do you think is your biggest challenge? And then after 2026, more longer term. So what do you think are the biggest challenges sitting out there? And Josh, be ready because you're next.
I think the overall farm economy as a whole has really changed the way that some growers are thinking about their seed decisions. And on top of that, you have you guys know the statistics as well as I do. The average age of the farmer is not getting any younger, and it seems like every year with the current economy as well, some of the older guys that don't have a succession plan in place are starting to decide that this might be the time just to close up shop and go a different direction. And I think the biggest hurdle with that is trying to retain those acres, and especially a lot of those situations, we've been on those acres for several years, and then the big neighbor comes over or whatever the case is, and just trying to get our seed specialists and our leadership team and everything to keep that seed on those acres, even when the acres transition to the next generation or to the neighbor or to whoever that may be. I think that's probably going to be the biggest one for this upcoming year.
What about going forward?
Long term going forward. There are a lot of new and exciting things in the pipelines from multiple different suppliers, and trying to gauge a little bit what direction everybody will go in from a grower standpoint. Most growers, the last couple of years, aren't even sure what they're going to do for the next year until it's that time. So trying to make sure we have the right product in the right geographies, and keep everybody educated on all of that stuff as it all comes down the pipelines. I think that'll be another big hurdle.
Got it. Okay. Josh, what do you think there?
A lot of similarities on especially the long term and short term, both. Like, Dad always loves quotes and phrases and things like that. And a lot of meetings he starts off with different ones. And I know one that he's used a couple of times is that the rate of change will never be any slower than it is today. So change will be change is a constant, and it will be constantly increasing as we move forward. There's more technology, more information, more everything to go into all of our decision making, and I think that's the biggest challenge is remaining flexible enough to make those changes, but also be stable enough to have what it is that we need to have right now. Whether that's the right products, the right traits, the right people, all of those things. Just staying in tune with the market, with our customers and with our suppliers. I think that's the biggest focus that we need to have, and work on all of the little things that make us who we are, what we've become. The customer service, the doing the things that others don't have the flexibility to do. I think both short and long term, I think that's our biggest issue. I also think, to echo what Jake had just said, a lot of things in the pipeline, a lot of things coming up, trying to figure out which way the market will go. That'll be a big challenge. Fortunately for us, being we started off in soybean side of things, we do a lot of our own soybean production. A lot of the new traits coming out are soybean platforms, and so I think that'll give us a lot of flexibility in those and being able to produce a wide variety of things, and keeping us nimble to be able to meet the market demands on that front in the future.
So I have a question. With all of the technology advancements that I feel like we've seen just recently, it's just exponential. How are y'all deciding, how to use newer technology, and what's the biggest challenge that you see with that?
I think
I think
really
one of the
it's
things that we've
playing
done.
with all of those. Go ahead, Jake.
I was just gonna say that I think the biggest thing that we have always preached is the customers first, and so I think the way we've done it in the past and the way we'll continue to do it is having those conversations with our growers and saying, what technologies do you see are going to be, the most beneficial to you? And we don't sell traits, we sell hybrids and varieties, and so I think that that's one of the things that the people really enjoy working with us on is, it doesn't matter if it's XenFlex or if it's Enlist or if it's Power Core or Smart Stacks. We're not out there trying to push a certain trait on our growers. We're truly looking at what's best for them.
Got it. So you're focused on the hybrid and the placement and what's really going to fit the particular farm better, which is exactly agreed what you need to do. I think, though, where Catherine was going on this is with the advances in all the technology and ancillary stuff. And I mean, one of the pushes IPS is doing is, trying to get everybody to engage with artificial intelligence. As for instance, we're also very focused right now on, some I would call it back office type things, and where we can drive more efficiencies, like in expense reporting and CRM management from those technologies as well. But just in general, and then we look in the ag technology space, and let's face it, there's everything happening in ag technology. You've got Interplant out there that's got satellites up that's looking down, at the at crops to see different colors for stresses. You got stress markers that are coming in with different breeding techniques that are sitting out there. We've got, tractors that not only just auto steer, but actually autonomously drive now. You've got see and spray technology. There is so much technology going on with farmers at this juncture, and, technology to be engaged with a seed company to improve efficiencies in business. What are y'all doing there? That's the real question. And Josh, let me come back to you, since I know we're doing a lot of stuff sitting right now in the office, since you're obviously the office guy and Jake's actually working. What are you thinking there with the technology?
So going back to all those different options, I guess one of our philosophies has always been we never say no right out of the gate to any opportunity or any new thing. But before we introduce that to our customers, before we broadly offer that, we want internal usage on it. We want to get our hands on it. We want to get into it and kind of get our own feel for those things. And so a lot of times that's kind of our first step is, all right, we're going to put this on our own acres, or we're going to demo this, or we're going to try this.
Well, that's an important thing. Is I got admonished by Kevin Van Trump on stage at Shane's place, as a matter of fact. Nothing like me being on stage with Kevin Van Trump and trying to compete with that guy. You're going to lose. You can, he has spent enough money that you could efficiency yourself to death trying to do all this stuff with new tools. So
Yes.
you certainly have got to be correct and look at things before you make a arbitrary decision on something, no doubt. And hopefully that's something we can help with by, test piloting a few things for companies and say, we've looked at this and it works well.
And sometimes you got to use your gut too. They alluded to, I love quotes. Henry Ford said, if I would have asked my customers what they would have wanted, and they would have said faster horses. So, I remember in the mid 90s, not having access to Roundup Ready soybeans and meeting with a group of farm managers that we had good business with for quite a while, and asking them, do I need to be finding a source for Roundup soybeans for you guys in the future? No, oh no, Pursuit's working just fine. We don't need Roundup. That's an extra $5 a bag. We're not going to pay that. So, part of it's you got to have a bit of a visionary future for what's out there too, because, as you guys know, we get exposed to all this pipeline stuff from everybody, and we see what the potential of some of these things are that are out there. Our customers aren't getting exposed to all of that. So that's actually, we call our sales team seed specialists, and we're going to specialize in seed. And part of our thing, part of our approach that we go out to the countryside with is, we're going to focus on seed. We're going to be a seed specialist, so you don't have to be. You've got all these other decisions that you need to make. So let us come alongside of you and help you guide you down that seed path, because it is quite overwhelming compared to what it was even 10 years ago, Todd.
Yeah, no, I get it. And Randy, I very much remember the first time I saw Roundup Ready soybeans in a flat at a Monsanto field day. Here's Roundup Ready soybeans. They all look like soybeans. And here's sprayed with Roundup. Here's Roundup Ready here's non-Roundup Ready soybeans sprayed with Roundup. It was just dead. It's like, yeah, that crap. Who cares? I mean, we got in the South, it was Scepter, not Pursuit, but another imidazzling from American Cyanamid. And then, wow, they introduced it in what, 94, 95, I guess, in full bloom, and by 99, AMSI was no more.
Yeah,
so
it changed the industry very quickly.
It really did in that aspect. So I mean, being able to see that stuff and measure that, to your point, early in that process, farmers didn't see that it was going to be a huge benefit, but boy, once it got on the field, it was a storm you couldn't stop. It was literally that freight train coming down the track.
Yep.
So interesting stuff, no doubt. Well, guys, what about last words here? So we're about to come to the conclusion of where we wanted to go in our time frame. Where I guess last words on what you think, where you'd like to see the industry go, and where y'all would really aspire to be in 5 years' time. And see, this is kind of homework for me because we're going to have a strategic IPSA meeting here in July, and trying to figure out where IPSA needs to go in 5 years. So we want to know where y'all want to go in 5 years. That way we can address that where we need to be too. So what are you thinking? Randy, you're going to be on the boat, in 5 years, and not taking calls for it with the background. You're actually going to be there, and it's just going to be the boys.
It'll be getting
Jake?
closer.
Yeah, Jake, go. What are you thinking?
5 years from now, I'd like to see, we've been on a really steady growth pattern here, and I'd just like to see that continue. I think we're growing at a really good speed. One of the things that we've always said and was always instilled in us growing up was better before bigger, and a lot of times while we're working on getting better, that just leads to being bigger. We don't, you don't have to have that concerted effort at continued organic growth if you continue to do the things that you're already doing better. And so I think that that is kind of where I'd like to be in 5 years, is just continue this growth curve that we're on, and better before bigger. And I think the industry, honestly, have no idea, Todd. I don't think anybody knows where the industry is going to be in 5 years. I think that nobody would have thought that we were going to be where we are today 5 years ago. So I don't even have any speculation on that.
Well, we're at a precipice of change again. I mean, there's no doubt that particularly you look at the soybean markets and you see that where we were even 5 years ago, it looked like Extend was going to take over the world. Then E3 came in and really did a big change, and now we're on the cusp of Iconic. We've got major patent expirations on corn traits coming in the next 24 months. So 5 years from now, we have it set up to have some really seismic events that will really shake up the market going forward again, no doubt. Josh, what about you, man? Randy, any last words?
Yeah, I obviously would like to continue to see us grow. I was thinking about this a little bit last night. If you go back in time, you had the mom and pop general stores, right? And then the Sears catalog came along and was a disruptor, and then Walmart came along, and then Amazon, and I heard an interview with Jeff Bezos one time that said that he fully expects that someday Amazon will fail. So I think to be wise enough to, like you indicated, there's a lot of changes coming in place in the next 5 years. I remember when I first started trying to get a Holden's license back in the day, you had to present a 20-year business plan. Now it's a struggle to do 5, right?
Yeah.
3 is probably more realistic to be able to put together a realistic plan. So I think keeping a mindset that what got us here won't get us there. We just need to continue to be flexible, and I think that's been a lot of the strength of IPSA. over the last almost 30 years now, and being flexible.
Shoot. Where are we
You know?
at? No, 89. Man, are you kidding? You're not giving us credit.
Yeah, 6 years.
Well, yeah, you are. I guess that's right. I'm trying
Yeah.
to add 10 years to us. 27, 28. Catherine?
It was formed in 89.
I can't count.
Yeah, it was formed in 89. It'd be 36. Well, 37, I guess. Because
Yeah.
fun fact, I'm as old as Itza.
Yeah, we could have done without that.
Yeah.
I feel old enough lately. I really do. And to your point earlier, Randy, I have I am your dad. It's like, well, I remember when, and it's just I remember all the old people saying that, but it's really important because I do remember when. And I mean, these are reflective points.
Yeah. I think Tim Bratlin and I were talking at a meeting about a year or so ago, and we were looking around the room and realizing that we are now the old guys.
Well, I got to tell you something. No offense, but I think Tim's still below both of us. So, there you go. That means you and I are really the old guys. Of course, if we got Brad Taylor in the room, we could always point to Brad and say,
Yeah.
he's the old guy.
He's an easy target. Yeah.
Yeah, he's an easy target. Well, gents, we certainly appreciate your time today. And this has been good. I like being able to talk to companies that are successful in growing. To your point, Josh, you're either growing or dying, and let's keep growing. But really appreciate your time today. And it's your story is the story of IPSA. And I agree. I think IPSA's resilience is what independence resilience is, being able to be flexible and move and change with the marketplace. So thanks very much for all of this.
Well,
Catherine,
thanks for the invite.
Yeah, of course. So don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to this podcast to bring other people into the fold. And we appreciate y'all giving us some time today, guys.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks for having us. Have a great day.